Today on Management Muse, we are going to talk about the concept of narrow framing. And we're going to talk about some of the ways that we do narrow framing and some of the reasons why that's problematic. And then some of the solutions in order to avoid pitfalls of narrow framing. So, Jeffrey, do you have a good story?
I have many.
I know you always have a good
many
story.
stories
so
of narrow framing.
Well, I kind of do too, and they're all recent, but I don't know if I should get into those.
Yeah. Just clean them up to protect the.
Yeah.
We always, as we talk about, most of what we talk about is from the work we do in companies, but we'll try to clean it up to protect the innocent and the guilty. Yeah, my example is basically a guy who got offered a promotion at work and didn't know if he wanted it. And so he started talking about, look, should I take this or not? Should I take this promotion or not? Which, as we're going to talk about in this podcast, is one of the classic ways of knowing that your brain trying to help is actually hindering you by framing the issue too narrowly in a either I take it or I don't. We call that X or not X. I take this job or I don't. And I'm like, well, let's talk about some options, which is the classic way to unwind narrow framing. What else could you do? And he's like, well, I could keep the job I currently have. Okay. Or I could take the other job. Okay. What else could you do? Well, maybe I could go part-time and do this job they want to promote me to part-time while the other person who's still in the job is there and see if I like it. And I was like, now we're getting somewhere. And we thought about a couple other options that he could do, shifting people around in his particular department to then try the job full-time, but for a test run was a fourth option, basically go and actually do it full-time and do a test run. But by the time the dust is settled, we'd only spent 10 minutes talking about it. And the guy signed himself up for a 50-50 split for 6 months, split the job 50-50. And then at the end of 6 months, see if he wants to move to the new one or not. And that is exactly the sin of narrow framing. He thought his only option was either to tell his boss, I take it or I don't, when in fact, he was able to get an experimental 6-month period. Try it out. The other person's there. It doesn't hurt the company. And he has enough coverage in his own department that he could do the split like that until it was feasible.
And so I think it would be maybe helpful to understand why we have a tendency to do that, because that happens all the time. And, it's just like everything else in life. Like there's a trade-off, right? There's some benefits to something, and then there's the downside to something. And so the brain is built basically because it's such a energy hog for the body.
Yep.
It's built to simplify everything that you're seeing. Like all your perceptions are simplified, your memories are stored in a simplified way. And so when you are thinking through decisions, it really actually gets pretty much overloaded at the point of 3, but 2 is the number that we were often working on. You give the brain 2 things to consider, and it just automatically starts to shut down all the other options and fails to see that there may be like a whole rainbow of options in between those 2 points.
Yeah.
And it's doing that so that way it can run very fast and not consume so much energy. But the downside is that sometimes we get stuck in these false dichotomies, and it's not until you realize that everybody has a tendency to do that, and you force yourself to start thinking about more than just those 2 options that you actually get to better options.
Yeah, you generate more.
Right. You generate more, and then oftentimes they're better because the X or no X, most things have more, there's more options than that usually in the world.
Yeah, it took us 2 or 3 minutes, and we went from take this promotion or not to I take it, I keep my current job, I go to that one, I do a 6-month trial, 50-50 split, or I actually go all in for a couple months, get somebody to cover my job here internally, and if I like it, stay, if not, come back.
Now, I will say that particular employee had unique value that gave them the ability to sort of be able to be like, hey, I'm going to be doing this for 50% of the time, like to be able to negotiate with the current job without losing it.
Right. But you're right. This was a special case, but even let's say it's not. Let's say that somebody's thinking, should I take this job in another company or not? So that same issue comes up sometimes. And that's often X or not X. Should I take this job or not? You can still say, all right, what are your choices? Well, I stay in my current company. I go over and take this job. And again, that's usually where people are stopping. Or who do you know who's had this job you're about to take? Well, I actually know the person who I'll be replacing. I knew that person from a networking. We'll call that person and ask them about the job. Ask them why they're leaving the job, just as an example. And that's a third option. Or ask the company, can I do this job part-time?
Right.
And we
so that way you can actually maintain your full-time job until you figure out whether or not it's a good fit for you at the next job.
Yeah, we actually had a guy so well loved in a company. And anyway, I don't want to get too far off on the tangent, but we had a guy so well loved in a company, he got another job offer, and his own company, basically realizing that he's going to leave, said, look, we'll make you a deal. Why don't you split your time and see if you like it? And we'll keep your job open. You can like basically go do that job for a little while, but we'll keep this one open for you. And you just come on back if you don't like it. And I'll be darned if the guy didn't like it. That basically, there were a couple of things they promised him that they didn't give him. And he got over there for just like 4 or 5 weeks and came back. No harm, no foul. And it's just this idea that we're, our brain is amazing in all the ways that over multiple episodes we talked about. But as Cindi just said a few minutes ago, the key challenge of the brain, which leads to narrow framing, is the brain, anytime it recognizes that we're struggling, that there's a cognitive load put on our mental machinery, it goes searching for a shortcut, technically called a heuristic, or it goes searching for something that is similar and then just kind of boom, frames that up. And in this case, with the narrow framing, the brain is telling us, hey, it seems like you're struggling with this. Let me make it simple for you. Either we do it or we don't. And that's actually overly simple. There's usually more options, more and often better options that we can think our way through. So the first way of kind of in the sense that you're narrow framing is you get something as X or not X. Either I do this or I don't. The second one is where you're choosing between two things. And so where you're sometimes coming down to, I can use my favorite example. There's 2 big ski passes. And there's one is I guess might as well just use the names so people, any ski nerds out there will know what I'm talking about. But basically, there's 2 huge mega passes for skiing. One is called Epic and the other is called Icon. And so every time at the beginning of ski season, I look at where do I think I'm going to go? Which pass of these should I get? And it always comes down to either X or Y. Should I get Epic or should I get Icon? And a few years ago, I recognized, taking some of my own medicine, that this is narrow framing. And I'm like, well, what else should I do? What else is out there? And so I started looking for what other kinds of passes there are. And I'd never heard of these, but there are 2 others. One's called a Mountain Collective and the other's called an Indie Pass. I didn't even know they existed because I was too, it's not a huge internet search. You can figure this out, which is the point of our discussion today. I was about to make a big purchase based on, am I going Epic or Icon? Because those are the big 2. Recognizing that, I expanded the search a little bit. Started thinking, added, a couple more minutes of the search, figured out there's 2 other kinds of passes. And so now I'm choosing between 4, which is a lot better than 2. And come to find out that—
Not better in terms of flexibility.
Yeah, there's a lot more choices. And so we come to find out—
And potentially money.
Yes. yeah, the savings are better. And the Mountain Collective, which I ended up buying, has ski days at Banff, which has a place that you like to stay. And so it ended up actually being a better decision, which this is the, you know, in a nutshell, this is the whole episode. I, for 2 or 3 seasons before, had no idea that these other passes existed. I would just pick Epic or Icon each year.
Or sometimes just pay outright.
Yeah, sure.
Time.
Yeah. But then once I realized there's this other pass, it's in the mix, and it's actually worked very well for us. And that's a result of getting out of the narrow frame and just ever so slightly expanding my focus. And that's a good example also of X or Y, a common way things get teed up. Either I'm going to buy the Corolla, or I'm going to buy I guess do people still buy Corollas? Either I'm going to buy the Camry, or
more Camry.
I'm going to buy the Prius. Camry or Prius. Well, really? That's it? Like, could we lease something and try it out and see if we want a hybrid first? Could we rent a hybrid for a couple weeks? Anyway, you get the idea.